regarding the 2025 gun control legislation.
I'll read that. Bear with me, this is long, but it's important. Okay, this is resolution of the Town of Foster, resolution number 2025-1, opposition to Rhode Island 2025 gun control legislation. Whereas the Town Council of the Town of Foster, pursuant to Rhode Island statute and the Town of Foster Charter, is vested with the authority of administering the affairs of the Town of Foster, Rhode Island. And whereas the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, ratified on December 15th, 1791, as part of the Bill of Rights, protects the individual rights of the people to keep and bear arms. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in District of Columbia versus Heller, 554 U.S. 570, 2008, affirmed an individual's right to possess firearms unconnected with service in the militia for traditionally lawful purposes. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in McDonald versus Chicago, 561 U.S. 742 in 2010, affirmed that the right of an individual to keep and bear arms as protected under the Second Amendment is incorporated by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment and is applicable to the states. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in United States versus Miller, 307 U.S. 174 in 1939, opined that firearms that are part of ordinary military equipment or with use that could contribute to the common defense are protected by the Second Amendment. And whereas Article 1, Section 22 of the Rhode Island Constitution, adopted in 1842, provides that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And whereas Article 1, Section 6 of the Rhode Island Constitution provides that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, papers, and possessions against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but on complaint in writing upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and describing as nearly as many as may be the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. And whereas, as a matter of general principle, and in recognition of over 230 years of lawmaking under the guidance of the Constitution for the United States of America, having properly established numerous laws regarding criminal use of firearms that are wholly adequate when judiciously enforced, such that additional laws are unneeded, any law which upon passage renders a lifelong law-abiding citizen a felon through no action of their own is an unjustified law and should be unconstitutional under multiple amendments in the Bill of Rights. And whereas it is the desire of the Town Council of the Town of Foster to declare its support of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and to the provisions of the Rhode Island Constitution, which protect the citizens of the state of Rhode Island's individual right to keep and bear arms. And whereas the Foster Town Council members each took an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution, the Rhode Island Constitution, and the laws of the state of Rhode Island, which are not deemed unconstitutional by a court of competent jurisdiction, and the charter of the town of Foster. And whereas the Foster Town Council members give great weight to and adhere to the belief of James Madison Jr., the fourth president of these great United States, that oppressors can tyrannize only when they achieve a standing army, an enslaved press, and a disarmed populace. And whereas the Foster Town Council desires to protect the rights of law-abiding citizens, individuals have committed crimes with firearms should be fully prosecuted with existing laws on the books. And whereas bills that have been passed and are being considered by the General Assembly would require the confiscation and storage of otherwise lawfully owned firearms and make the towns and cities of Rhode Island responsible for these costs. And whereas Rhode Island General Law 11-47-41, government firearm registration prohibited, specifically says, no government agency of this state or its political subdivisions shall keep or cause to be kept any list or register of privately owned firearms or any list or register of the owners of those firearms, provided that the provisions of this section shall not apply to firearms which have been used in committing any crime of violence, nor to any person who has been convicted of a crime of violence. And whereas Rhode Island firearm purchase requirements already include a background check and 7-day waiting period and a blue card for the purchase of handguns, and additionally, a lengthy process for obtaining a concealed carry permit. All evidence of some of the most restrictive gun purchase ownership laws in the country. And whereas John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health Center for Gun Violence Solutions report that Rhode Island had the lowest overall gun death rate and gun suicide rate in the country in 2022, is further evidence of the effectiveness of laws already in existence in Rhode Island. And whereas the limited gun violence that does exist is not from law-abiding citizens who own firearms, but from criminals who pay no attention to any existing or proposed laws. So it naturally follows that any bills restricting the rights of firearm owners will have no impact on the criminal element responsible for gun violence. And whereas the so-called assault weapons targeted in proposed legislation is sweepingly broad and includes many semi-automatic rifles, shotguns, and handguns in common competition and hunting usage, none of which have been part of the so-called gun problem. And whereas these bills not only penalize law-abiding citizens from exercising their constitutional right for owning a firearm, but they also damage federally licensed firearm dealers who are Rhode Island business owners. They would most certainly restrict their sales and livelihood. And whereas the Rhode Island General Assembly in its 2025 legislative session has pending before it bills regulating and restricting the rights afforded the citizens of the state of Rhode Island through the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Rhode Island, most notably including but not limited to House Bill 5436 and Senate Bill 359, the Rhode Island Assault Weapons Ban Act of 2025 would prohibit the possession of assault weapons, defined very broadly to include a wide range of, more accurately, the Rhode Island Semi-Automatic Firearms Ban of 2025. In order to be exempt, the weapon must, within 12 months of the bill's passage, be registered, seemingly in violation of Rhode Island General Law 11-47-41, be rendered inoperable, be surrendered to a registered firearm dealer or police department, or be transferred to a person in another jurisdiction where such firearms are allowed. It would also require any heirs of a decedent to surrender or transfer the firearm. If registered, the lawful owner would be required to submit fingerprints and pay a fee for registering the firearm. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Foster takes the following position on state legislation that potentially abridges our Second Amendment rights. We find and declare that these gun restriction bills, if enacted by the Rhode Island General Assembly, infringe upon the rights of the people of the town of Foster and the people of the state of Rhode Island to keep and bear arms. We are collectively opposed to the infringement of these rights established by our founding fathers. Be it further resolved that these bills impose unfunded mandates upon local governments, and the Town Council of the Town of Foster will not appropriate funds for capital construction of building space and or the purchase of any storage systems to store weapons seized pursuant to any requirements set forth in the legislation, if enacted by the General Assembly for the purpose of enforcing any law that unconstitutionally infringes upon the rights of the people of the town of Foster to keep and bear arms. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to every Rhode Island municipality, state senators, state representatives, the governor, and the lieutenant governor, respectfully requesting their support. Adopted this 27th day of March, 2025.
I will accept a motion to put resolution 2025-01 of opposition to Rhode Island 2025 gun control legislation on record.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Adam Dacko, 119A Central Pike. As a citizen, I am very, very happy to hear this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As a business owner, again, thank you very much. It will have an impact on this industry, as it was excessively detailed yesterday while attending the State House. It financially, it will have an impact not only on us personally, but have an impact on the state of Rhode Island for the income that they will be losing out. The hunters will be losing out. That was one detail that got left out yesterday, is how much it would impact the hunting industry. But what it would do is, under the Robertson-Pittman Act, it would greatly reduce the income of a percentage of every purchase of firearm and ammunition. It's less for the hunter for us to put back into the environment towards lesson, towards say, for instance, Great Swamp facility. It's unfathomable. It's seriously, it's incalculable on how this the state of Rhode Island will lose out on just that alone. And as a citizen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I want to add is, for myself, as a councilman, I swore an oath to be true and faithful and support the laws of the Constitution of the state and the Constitution of the United States, which I will do. And as a proud U.S. Marine veteran, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I will continue to do that till the day I die. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.